Hi, this is Swapnil Bhartiya, and we are here at KubeCon Cloud in Atlanta, and we have with us once again Dimitri Vlachos, Chief Marketing Officer at Spacelift. Dimitri, it's great to have you back on the show.
It's great to see you again.
I want to hear from you. How has been this show for you so far?
So I think the show's been great. A lot of really good conversations. It's been interesting to see the conversations we have. There's people who are pretty advanced in their infrastructure automation. There's people who are just getting started. There's certainly talk about AI, but, a lot of people, especially this market, this audience, there's some skepticism about AI. Like I find a lot of vendors promise everything about AI versus where does it really fit in and how is it going to actually help me day to day? So that's what I've found so far in the show.
You folks have been talking a lot about a big shift in how teams approach infrastructure automation, moving from traditional infrastructure as code towards intent-based automation, which is powered by AI, and almost everybody is talking about AI these days. What kind of announcements you folks made here? What kind of technologies you're showcasing here? Sure. What kind of discussions you're having here?
So certainly what you introduced about a different way to manage and deploy infrastructure, in an automated fashion with AI that, we call intent, is a topic we've been bringing up. But I also want to be very clear. We don't believe that intent-based deployment is replacing IaC and GitOps. We believe there's really a dual path, meaning for critical infrastructure, for infrastructure that, you want a lot of rigor, you want process, IaC and GitOps is perfect, right? It's got a lot of process, it's got really good gates, it's got a lot of ceremony around it to go for when you want to deploy. And that's great. And we've been doing that for the last 7-8 years. It's become a standard part of deployment. And Spacelift was founded and built all around helping accelerate that whole model and to centralize that for teams. What we have found is that all that ceremony and process is really good for production, but there's a lot of times where teams, DevOps platform teams, are doing a lot of work on non-critical infrastructure, non-production infrastructure that takes them away from their core mission. And this is a great place for AI to really come and help. So this is where we've allowed now they can be DevOps, they can be developers, they can connect their LLM of choice, whether it's, Claude Code, ChatGPT, other coding agents, and they basically can connect to our MCP server called Intent, and they're able to basically now deploy infrastructure directly from their LLM. But behind the scenes, we are putting a bunch of guardrails in between, policies. So it's a way of allowing people to move very quickly to deploy non-critical infrastructure and iterate very quickly, right? And the other key piece is it's bypassing the whole code aspect of IaC. So rather than having to write all this infrastructure, Terraform, HCL, OpenTofu, whatever flavor you want to use, writing that and then having that be processed and deployed, you skip that. You basically deploy directly to the Terraform providers, directly to the APIs that are managing these different parts of your cloud infrastructure, so you can deploy much faster, but with the guardrails that you want. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, where we look at two deployment models. One for non-critical, test environments where you use AI, but then when you want to use rigor in production, you use IaC and GitOps.
I mean, you and I have been talking a lot. So those who have seen the show and those who know Spacelift, they do fully understand what is intent-based automation. But and during your explanation, you did touch upon different pieces. But I think it may be a great idea for a lot of newcomers to actually understand what is intent-based automation and how does it compare to infrastructure as code.
So intent-based infrastructure really means you're able to, rather than having to write code to describe what you want, you use simple natural language. So you go and say, I want you to deploy, and it can vary. You can say, I want to deploy a database that supports this size of infrastructure or this size of workload, deploy it for me. Or it could be, it can be as specific as, I want an S3 bucket, deploy it for me, right? Rather than having to write a bunch of code to describe what you want deployed, put it through a GitOps process, do a pull request, have it deployed, do a plan, all that ceremony. You're basically talking to an LLM and asking it to deploy for you. That's really what intent-based deployment means.
What kind of traction are you seeing so far?
So we just opened this up as early access in the last month, and we've seen a huge number of people sign up for early access and using it. And we've actually seen something that we didn't really anticipate. So as I mentioned, we really see this as a second deployment model for non-critical infrastructure to take a lot of pressure off DevOps, right? We've had a number of companies come to us and say, hey, we have parts of our team that are very advanced in infrastructure automation and IaC, and they love this idea to offload some of their work. We also, however, are seeing areas where people are not using IaC yet. They're coming into the cloud. They want to bypass the overhead of learning HCL, of learning Terraform, and they want to use intent more broadly, which we didn't really anticipate. We thought this was more of it's great for production and for non-production. And some people are saying, great, I want to use this for production because we have the guardrails. We're not letting the same policies you can describe to control your IaC pipelines, you can actually control your intent as well. So that's what I think is, to me, the most interesting thing we've heard.
This is what happens when you build a technology with your intent in mind.
Yes.
When you open it up and the way people start using it, even you are blown away.
Correct.
And when it comes to these things, like for example, I'm woodworking, I do heavily woodworking. I can use a lot of hand tools. I can use pen and paper, or I can go to I can just pull my Festool and suddenly it makes it. So I may already know the foundational, but it makes my life easier because I save so much time there.
Yes.
Or I may not know the foundation at all, but that doesn't mean I should not be able to build anything.
Yeah.
So this is how I simplify things, that there is nothing wrong in whatever approach it is, whether it's call it vibe coding or intent-based.
Yes.
So it depends on what problem you're solving, as long as it's enabling people.
And you're clear with its limitations, what it can do, the guardrails you can have, because the biggest thing I see in this area is, I'm interested to use this, but I can't trust it blindly. And we feel the same way for our customers. So, and we've also open sourced intent. So it's not just you have to come to us for the pay. We have, the open source version of intent, so you can go experiment on your own.
Now, since you said, trust,
Yes.
Let's talk about security, because security is top of mind for everyone right now. It's not the case security is someone else's problem. Actually, the beauty is nowadays people start talking security as soon as they are writing the code, forget about pushing the code.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a bit about, you already brought their perspective here with, should I trust it or not? So when people come and ask you, can they trust AI to handle their infrastructure? What is your answer to them?
So I think our answer is twofold. One, we provide a lot of context to the LLM through our MCP server, to help guide it of what does it really mean to deploy infrastructure in the environment. The other is we provide a very robust set of policies. So you can control what can and cannot be deployed. You can control where it can be deployed. You have, whoever the user is, the LLM, whoever the user is who's using the LLM, you can control what access they have. So there's a lot of guardrails you can put around it, but we certainly believe AI, to say we're not going to use any AI to deploy any infrastructure, I think is a direction that, probably is going to change, right? The idea that you're going to use it for everything right now, I think is a fair thing to not do. But the idea that you can go experiment, put guardrails around it, use it in the limited environments, so you as a customer can decide where you want that, what appetite you want. I think that's key. I also think eventually you're going to see agents coming to deploy, not just humans interacting with an LLM. So that is coming. How fast, we'll see, but I think it is coming.
Now, are you also seeing, because of the maturity of, where you're seeing a lot of transition from infrastructure as code to intent-based model, and if you're seeing such transition happening, how is Spacelift helping them in that transition?
I think it's early. So if you look at this market, right, just a step back, a lot of people in this market, when they talk about bringing AI to IaC, they're focused on how can AI write faster code, write faster HCL. And we're taking a very different approach. So rather than just building code, it's skip the whole code piece. If you're really going to go to intent-based infrastructure, you don't need code in between. And so that's one fundamental difference, I think. In terms of where do we see this going and adoption, we've been, it's early. We're definitely seeing people liking the idea of using AI in non-critical infrastructure as a great starting point. And we've seen a lot of interest in deployment of that. Now, to your question of how do we support it, we view, that you really have two deployment models, and our platform supports both natively. So the idea is you get a lot of shared infrastructure back to security. We're the only player in this market that's FedRAMP certified. So we take security very seriously. The platform has a bunch of security infrastructure around your deployments, whether you're doing IaC or intent. And so when you're doing, you can choose. When you purchase us, you can add IaC, you can add intent. Any infrastructure you deploy with intent, if you want to, you can promote into your IaC, GitHub, GitOps pipelines. So basically, you take what you've deployed with intent, you can keep it running via intent-based, or if you want to bring it into your more, traditional pipelines, we will export that into code for you so you can run it in your GitOps workflow. So we really believe and truly support natively both models. We don't believe right now that intent's going to replace IaC and GitOps. We believe they're both critical today, and we support both as first-class citizens in your infrastructure automation.
Now, you folks also hosted IaC Conf,
Yep.
On Monday, IaC Conf Connect on Monday.
IaC Conf Connect, yes.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about that event and what kind of discussions that you saw there.
We started IaC Conf in May this year because we stepped back and looked, and there's not really a conference that or a good place for people to connect. We found that to talk about IaC, that's truly community-based. So we started IaC Conf in May. We had over 3,000 people register. We had 2,200 attend. It was virtual, but it was a huge success. We had, talk tracks for experts, for novices. We had some interesting panel discussions. So and the feedback was amazing. And what the two things people asked for were, we want to have targeted events, like we did our first IaC Conf Spotlight, which we call it, which was on security. To your topic of security, there was two big topics people wanted spotlights on: security and AI. So we did security first, and then we had IaC Conf Connect. The other thing people wanted, they wanted to meet up in person. So we had IaC Conf Connect, our first in-person event, Monday night. We had over 250 people register. We had like 120 attend. Clearly all the travel. I mean, it's been an interesting in terms of all the travel nightmares because of FAA. But it was a great event, and we had a really good panel all about, and the topic people wanted, it was about AI in infrastructure. And one of the topics was a gentleman who is on the panel was just looking for a new job in DevOps. So he talked about the experience of searching for a job right now, and how does AI play both in you preparing your resume and getting sorted, as well as what are people asking about AI in infrastructure. So it was very successful year for IaC Conf, and we're really looking forward to continuing it next year.
How do you see automation, AI, and human expertise coming together to define the next generation of infrastructure management?
Okay, well, there's two. Existentially, in some ways, I look at, this, when you look at AI, when it comes to what we do for work, right? I look at it as, do you have the expertise of your area, right? Do you have creativity? And then can you use AI to help manifest both of those, right? So at a highest level, that's what I've been thinking about in terms of this. When it comes to automation, I think AI can really help us accelerate areas that we want to accelerate, can help abstract areas that expertise, if you look at computer science and the technology, it's all about abstractions that keep building. And AI, I think, can help you abstract a number of pieces to move faster. But, how do you not lose your creativity and what the innovation that humans bring? And so that's when I look at automation, I think it's a great way for AI to be your assistant to move fast on the things you want to move fast on, to give you more space to think of the things you deeply need to do for your company or for the infrastructure you're building, and then using AI to accelerate that. And that's how I look at it.
Dimitri, once again, thank you so much for joining me today, and of course and thanks for explaining intent-based.
Yeah.
And also, yes, leverage AI, but also be careful, and not, being careful itself is not enough. The way Spacelift is building the guardrails so that you can safely play, knowing that you are safe. That is the most important thing, and that is the job that vendors can play in this ecosystem, to let companies, dip their toes or just fully jump into the water, knowing that somebody has their back. So thanks for sharing all those insights, and I look forward to chat with you again. Thank you.
Sounds great. Great being here. Thank you very much.